Hi and welcome back again to GTN's Coaches Corners, where we answer all of your questions. And the 5 we have this week are: how to increase my power on the bike, why is my heart rate higher post-race, how to balance nutrition and training when I've got a busy week, training for a hilly ultramarathon and then a marathon just a few weeks after, and the final question: should I listen to my watch or perceived effort? So a great selection there. If any of those trigger a question that you might have, well, you can leave that beneath any video using that hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. But let's have a listen to the questions we've got this week. The first one from David Klein: trying to increase my watts on the bike. Should I feel like I'm pulling up and out of my shoes in the upstroke of the pedal, or should I feel like I'm staying connected to the pedal for the entire pedal stroke? What's the best way to increase my watts on the bike? I'm tired of everyone zooming by me in Watopia. Oh, well, David, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to having people zoom past them in Watopia, but it feels like there's 2 aspects to this question. And the first one about your pedal stroke, well, it basically needs to feel like a smooth action. There shouldn't feel like there's 2 parts to your pedal stroke, but ultimately the power comes from the downward phase. You're much stronger in that. You can put your weight over it. However, it doesn't mean it stops as soon as you get to the 6 o'clock on the clock. So there is a bit of a pull up, but it shouldn't feel like you're really pulling your foot. You shouldn't really feel your foot leave the shoe on the back. But as you go through it, so that the pedal stroke continues out the back, and then the next one takes over. So it's not a matter of just stomping down, but it's also not a matter of pulling up. So it should be a nice smooth transition. We do actually have a whole video on how to pedal. So if you want a little bit more on that, I would suggest going to check it out. But as for how to get more watts or get more powerful, I would say that's more going to be about your training. So obviously, I don't know what training you're currently doing, but you probably want to make your training more specific, and just riding on Zwift and doing races isn't necessarily going to help you. So you need to work out, is it that higher end power that you want? Do you want the ability to sprint or to catch people up, or do you want the ability to endure and go up hills more? So work out what it is you want. And it sounds like you're obviously already on Zwift. So you've got a huge array of training sort of schedules to do on there. There's 8-week plans that can get you ready for specific things. So once you've worked out what element it is of getting stronger on the bike that you can do, you can pick a program and follow that, and that can really help. You can also go away and do some strength work if it's the actual power and strength element that you feel you're lacking, maybe some in the gym, or maybe going out and riding on some hills as well. So it depends how your training looks and what you're already doing. But I would say that the pedal stroke is something, probably a very small element of why people are passing in Watopia, and it's probably more likely the fact that you need to maybe make your training a bit more specific for those races or those courses or whatever it is that you're climbing on. So yeah, good luck with your training, and we've got plenty of training videos on the channel if you want any specific help with that. Okay, next one from Ellie Sanali. Or who knows when it's all one word, which bits you emphasize. They say, "Hi guys, writing here for my first question for the coach. I started doing triathlons 1 year ago from a semi-professional swimming career when I was younger, done 2 sprints and 2 halves so far. After both 70.3s, I took a rest week with a few super easy sessions, and then I started slowly rebuilding. In the following weeks while running, I've noticed a massive increase in my heart rate, around 20 beats higher on an easy run, with respect to the 2 months leading up to the race. This did not happen on the bike or the swim, where I felt good and pace and effort is similar to pre-race. It basically seems I cannot run anymore in heart rate zone 2 without having to walk or massively slow down. Before the race, my easy conversational pace was 5:30. It's now 6 minutes to keep my zone down. Have I lost this much fitness, or is there some residual fatigue? And why would this occur only while running?" Quite a lot to unpick with that question, and you've obviously highlighted the fact of residual fatigue. It could be a bit of that, but it sounds like, I don't know exactly how many weeks you are post-race, but it does sound as though that's unusual that it is just in your running, not in your swim and your bike. But if you're coming from a swimming background, then I imagine that you find swimming just much easier anyway. So if you did have some fatigue, there's like to show. The same with cycling, it's a less stress on the body than running, and obviously running being a full body weight, being weight bearing, it is going to show signs of fatigue more readily. So I would more look at your other factors, like how well you're sleeping, how's your nutrition being, how are you actually feeling in yourself? Do you feel well? Do you feel recovered? Or do you still feel like you've got a little bit of actual fatigue from that? And listen obviously to the heart rate, but listen to your body as well, so it's not always so clear cut. The other aspect could be if it's several weeks after and you've had lots of rest, which I don't know quite what your rest has looked like, that you might have actually started to lose a bit of fitness. And the same would go again for running, that the fitness might well show more on the running if that's not something that you're so used to doing, whereas swimming, your fitness will probably plateau more easily and won't drop quite so low. And one other aspect could be if it's suddenly got much hotter wherever you're training, and that could make a difference of say 10 beats per per minute if you're suddenly running in much hotter conditions. But obviously, I don't know if that's a factor or not. But keep an eye on your heart rate, but also ultimately listen to your body. And if you feel like you're in zone 2 and you're conversational and you're happy running at that pace, then run at the conversational pace and just keep an eye on your heart rate. But hopefully that is going to start dropping, or maybe has already by the time we've answered this one. Next is Youngie8246. I'm currently training for my second Ironman 70.3 in Stafford next year. My nutrition has been up and down as I enjoy food and drink. I'm naturally big build and retain weight and currently weigh 230 pounds. Have you any advice you can offer with endurance 70.3 training and diet during the week with family and commitments, etc.? Struggle with calorie counting and diets. I can't stick to them and end up gaining weight. Your advice would be much appreciated, aiming for a sub 6 hours 30. Well, obviously with so many of these questions, it does depend on a certain element, and I'm always cautious giving nutrition advice because without seeing someone face to face, you don't know exactly what your nutrition already looks like. And obviously other people are watching this. But I would say I am very glad to hear that you are not doing diets per se, because you need to feel your body to be able to train. And ultimately that's going to be your biggest way to success in your event, is being healthy, getting to the start line healthy and being able to complete all of those sessions. And if you're doing some sort of diets that are not giving you all of that, then it's probably going to lead to you, like you say, giving up on the diet and then eating more as a result because you're really hungry. So instead, flip it around in your head and look at it as, how can I healthily fuel my body to be able to do all my training? And that might even change the mindset and thinking whether you can make small changes, like when do you eat your meals and when do you train? So say, for example, you train in the evenings. Can you have food that's ready to eat as soon as you've got back from your training session, so you're not going to be snacking before having your evening meal? The same goes for any meal at any time of day, but try to maybe reduce those snacks, but obviously you still need to fuel as soon as you finish. If you're doing a big ride or a big run, then try and fuel during it. Don't try to restrict your body and then when you finish you're going to start raiding the cupboard whatever you can find. Instead, look at it as actually keeping the fuel topped up, and that should help reduce the cravings as well. And I know you said you're really busy and you've got lots of work commitments and family commitments, which is obviously the whole challenge of training for triathlon. But as much as you can, try to plan ahead and have just your food ready so that you're not going to have that temptation, but you can also make sure you're getting it in as soon as you can so you can recover. And then obviously the fitter you get, the more training you can do, that will also help in the overall picture. So hopefully there's a few tips there, things that can help you. Good luck for your 70.3. Next question, Nina96. I am having a 55-kilometre trail, and I think that's 3,000, I presume that's elevation, 3,000 metres, in September, and a marathon just 5 weeks later. What would be your tips for training and for the weeks in between the races? Well, I would say obviously with your trail event first, then you're just simply focus on that because you're going to have the fitness and everything for the marathon afterwards. So ultimately, don't alter anything in your preparation for that trail, but then it's going to be all about your recovery afterwards. And once you've recovered, trying to get in a bit of more race pace or marathon pace work. So make sure that you're feeling well during the race and obviously up to it so that you're really conditioned. And the same for your training. The more conditioned you are and the fitter you are going into that event, the quicker you'll recover and the quicker you'll be able to start training for your marathon. And when it comes to your recovery, have plenty of rest, plenty of great food, try and do a bit of active recovery before you start your marathon training, because I think for a marathon, you will end up with some fatigue after that ultra. And ultimately, it's going to feel quite a bit quicker. I mean, a trail run is naturally slower anyway, and obviously it's another 15k further, and imagine a lot more climbing. So you want to try to get your legs feeling good running on the road again, and feeling that you've got a little bit of spring and you've got energy in the tank. So I can't prescribe exactly, but make sure you take at least a week of super easy, and then another week of building into it, and then you've still got 3 weeks to play with for your marathon. But don't fall into the trap of trying to do too much in that time. You're better off coming into your marathon more rested than you are overtrained. So good luck for both of those. So many races going on. Next, we have S. Rolf. Says, I've picked up a new watch with high hopes to monitor my fitness coming back from a serious back injury, but I'm confused by my heart rate numbers. Resting heart rate runs around 58 to 60, which is okay, right? But when I go for a slow jog, chatting with co-workers after work, where I feel effort couldn't really get any easier, my watch says I spend a vast majority of my run high in zone 4. Spent much of the run above 160. The two metrics of my perceived effort on that run just don't match. Do you have an interpretation? Oh, thanks for the awesome content. It keeps me motivated. Well, thank you for the question. I mean, your resting heart rate is fine, but I don't want to go into that because everybody is different. So yeah, there's obviously a range within reason, but when it comes to monitoring or following your heart rate, like you've done in this situation, you're paying attention to your own and how that varies to what you know. So that's the most important thing with heart rate, because we are all built very differently and we'll have a very different normal, and our zone 2 will be different to somebody else's zone 2. But I personally, I mean, I used to do pretty much all my training on perceived effort. So I was training for shorter distances, but I feel that what you are feeling is normally very accurate within reason. And if you are just using a watch for your heart rate, and compared to your perceived effort, I would listen to perceived heart rate. Now that is because the watch uses an optical sensor. So it's just sending a beam through your wrist to see how much dilation and contraction of the vessels to measure your heart rate. And it really isn't accurate. It's affected by temperature, it's affected by where you're wearing a watch, like how securely it's sat on your wrist, how your circulation is there. There's a lot going on. So if you want to check, first thing I would say is go and buy yourself a chest strap heart rate monitor. They don't cost a huge amount, and link that up to your watch, and then you'll have a very accurate number. And I would imagine once you've done that, you'll realise that you are actually in zone 2 where you feel, as opposed to zone 4, because I think you would know you would not be chatting away if you are working at the high end of zone 4. It's just not going to be possible. So I wouldn't dwell on it too much. I mean, new watch, great. Don't blame the watch. It's just the actual system that uses. And I personally find it really hard to get an accurate measurement from just any optical sensor. Just, I think it's something to do with the fact I'm normally cold, and especially in the winter as well. So, but other than that, try making sure that your watch is tight enough, obviously not too tight to cut circulation, but it's on securely as well. But for the time being, if you're going for a run with your co-workers and you're chatting, then you are going to be in a nice, easy zone, because obviously you're having a conversation. That's why I love perceived effort in that sense, but it can get a little bit confusing. So don't worry about it. I would say go and enjoy those runs, and yeah, maybe if you want those accurate measurements, invest in a strap. Okay, lots of questions. Again, loads that are themed around racing. If you guys have racing questions or anything around your training, we love answering them, as you can probably tell. So keep them coming in using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner.